long-time aficionados of Fact Hunt may remember that I did an episode on video games that contained viruses, often leading to a simple bit of fun completely destroying your computer. However, as we'll see today, that was just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to nefarious exploits in the world of digital entertainment. Be it through sheer ignorance, corruption, or greed, some rather unscrupulous fellows also insert spyware into your games too. I mean, why fleece you of DLC and other microtransactions when they could just outright steal your credit card details instead? So, this episode, we take a look at these prying programs, these abusive applications, and these snooping softwares. As I say. But, hello you. I'm Guru Larry, and I welcome you to Fact Hunt. 5 games you never knew contained actual spyware. The first game on the list is ironically named Breach. Not to be confused with Breach from 1987, and also not to be confused with Breach from 2011. No, this is 2018's Breach from the now defunct QC Games, which never even made it out of Steam Early Access. For those of you who have never heard of them before, QC Games was made up of ex-BioWare and ex-EA staff, and this reflected in the game, mainly as it was a buggy mess filled with microtransactions. For some users, however, being nickel and dimed by software that would crash often, unfortunately wasn't the biggest issue in play here. It came to light that the game was running spyware called IE Snare. This same spyware is used a lot in the world of online betting, where fraudulence is taken very, very seriously. IE Snare is designed to gather information about your computer, about your Windows registry, what web pages you visit, and how long you spent on said web pages. So when gamers put the words EA and spyware in the same sentence, then more alarm bells than your phone's work alarm will ring. QC Games responded to this by saying it was only in the game so they could tell what region players were in. Now, I'm no rocket surgeon, but I'm pretty sure you can program a game to do that without having to resort to using software that'll report to the studio how long their users spent on questionable anime websites. Not that any of this is a problem now anyway, as like I said, QC Games closed and took Breach away with it. The game was only ever on sale for 15 months before being wiped off the face of the earth. So if you paid $100 for the supporter bundle, well, sucks to be you then, doesn't it? Okay, the next entry on this list is not exactly a game, but ESEA stands for Esports Entertainment Association. They're best known for their esports leagues, such as for CSGO, which are organised through their own matchmaking system. In this client software, ESEA make a big song and dance about their anti-cheat system and how fantastic it is. So what ESEA are pushing here is a CSGO Go league with cash prizes, all played through a client they produced to stop the players from cheating. Now, what you're probably expecting at this point is a tale of how the ESEA client installed dirty spyware on your computer in the guise of anti-cheat software. But, shockingly, it's actually worse than that. Back in 2013, a rogue staff member at ESEA added a bit of their own spice to the user client program in an update, and then rolled that out to their thousands and thousands of members. What was this little addition added, I hear you ask? Well, it turned the user's computer into a Bitcoin mining machine, and then sent all the farmed coins back to said rogue staff member. By the time ESEA had worked out what had happened, just over $3,700 worth of Bitcoin had been mined by their users, and paid to the cheeky scamp that had injected this into the client. Now, to be totally fair to ESEA, they were completely transparent about the whole affair and laid out a detailed news update to their users over what had happened. ESEA even went as far as donating the same amount of money that had been mined to a cancer charity. So, in the end, a good cause got a nice donation, and a rogue staff member made off with Bitcoin worth $22,000 by the end of that year. So, there are no real losers here. Well, apart from the CSGO players who watch their Nvidia 660 Ti's completely melt farming cryptocurrency. MMOs are having a bit of a resurgence recently since Blizzard managed to completely arse up their reputation, which in turn has also almost killed World of Warcraft. But one MMO that has managed to stay around even while the Warcraft juggernaut was still on top is Guild Wars 2. It's your classic medieval fantasy style MMO experience. Swords, magic, anonymous players shouting offensive slurs. So all the sort of stuff you'd expect in this type of game. However, another thing that you'll find in MMOs are cheating hackers. The sort of people that refuse to accept this genre's grind mechanics and look to third-party software to bypass the rules. Guild Wars 2's developer, ArenaNet, knew that there were a lot of cheaters ruining the game, so decided to do something about it. But that something was to include spyware in the next update patch that would scan players' computers for any cheating software that they had running on their machines. Now, on one hand, if you have botting programs and MMO hack engines installed, it's a pretty safe bet that you are indeed trying to cheat the game. No one has these programs just because they like looking at them. But on the other hand, as bad as cheating is, forcing legitimate players to accept spyware just because your game's security is pony isn't the right answer, and it just ends up angering the players. So gamers were outraged at Guild Wars 2 for about as long as they could be hyped up for a new Peter Molyneux game. So, about a day and a half, and then everyone forgot all about it. I now want to bring your attention to a piece of marketing spyware called Red Shell. If you're wondering what game had it in, well, that's the fun part. At least with the spyware in Guild Wars 2, you could make the argument that it was there to prevent cheating. With any of the games that feature Red Shell spyware, there was no benefit to the player whatsoever. So, why was it there? What was its purpose? Well, it was solely a marketing analytics tool for the developer to see how well its online advertising campaigns were doing. That's it. Once installed, Red Shell would follow your online activities and report back to the game publisher if you clicked on any of their adverts via social media, YouTube, or a web page ad banner. What's worse is that none of this is by accident. No studio accidentally included this with their game. This was intentionally injected to each game listed earlier and then sold on Steam. But the very worst thing about all of this is that it's not even required in the first place. When you set up online advertising via social media sites or whatever, the host gives you all the analytics from your advertising campaign anyway. So the whole purpose of Red Shell spyware is a complete and utter waste of time. It's frankly unbelievable that people working in the tech industry don't understand how the tech industry works. Spyware that gives you data you already have is brought by game studios that don't need it and is forced onto users who don't want it. Plus, the users are PC gamers, so many of them are using VPNs, which makes the whole ridiculous affair totally redundant. I mean, what were they thinking? Now, I hope for your sake that you've never heard of Motorcycle Road 2D. However, if you are blissfully unaware of this game, it was an Android shovelware title that was distributed on the Google Play Store. Upon first looking at this game, it seems innocent enough. Just a crappy motorcycle platform game where you have to collect as many coins as you can before you get to the end of the level. But it's what's lurking in the background of this game that makes it by far the most egregious entry on this video. Motorcycle Road 2D had a piece of malware called the Joker embedded in its code, and this was no laughing matter. The Joker would then begin scanning your device and send personal details, SMS text messages, emails and the like back to the hackers, harvesting your information where you're stuck with an empty bank account and only a rubbish throwaway game to show for it. So the moral of this video is, when you're buying games from Steam or Google Play, just double check what you're getting into first. Or I could use some obvious comment bait and just say, stick to games consoles instead. Bye! Hello you! Thanks ever so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to be first to see future Fact Hunt episodes. Click on the bell if you already are to make sure you're notified, and be sure to check out my other episodes. And if you want to be super awesome, check out my Patreon. But thanks again for watching, and until next time friends, I'm missing you already.